Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiret Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namaha Pankajanabhaya Namaha Pankajamaline Namaha Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangrahe Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sopadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Desatharine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So welcome you all once again, and today we'll continue our discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we have been discussing Canto 11, and yesterday we have completed chapter 20 in an overview. So today we'll continue chapter 21. So chapter 21, it's a law. Is title says Lord Krishna's explanation on the Vedic path. So we were discussing about how this Varnashram Dharma, and what the different paths are: Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Krishna just goes more explaining to Uddhava in this chapter as well. So Lord Krishna continues here saying that those who give up these three methods. So earlier Krishna described that there are three ways for this self-realization. You do karma and then add it, like Karma Yoga. And then in Jnana, add Yoga, Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. So we understood about Karma Yoga is the one who is attached to sense enjoyment. However, he offers his activities, his results towards Lord Krishna. That's Karma Yoga. And Jnana Yoga is, in a nutshell, Krishna explained that, who analyzes everything and then he try to get above this. He doesn't engage himself in any activities. This is Jnana Yoga. And Krishna says Bhakti is in between that. They are not too attached to karma, and either they are, and they doesn't take any other way around as well. And they use this life as they devote like Krishna. And then Krishna now continues saying that those who give up these three methods, which consist of devotional service, that is Bhakti Yoga, analytical philosophy, that's a Jnana Yoga, and regulated execution of duties, that is Karma Yoga, and cultivate insignificant sense gratification, they undergo cycle of material existence. So apart from these three, the others one who doesn't take any of this path, they undergo this cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. And then Krishna explained that steadiness is piety. So being steady, being regularly in the devotional path is piety, and deviating from these principles is impiety. So Vedic literature, they conceive of different names and forms in relations to such bodies, these five body elements we have in these bodies, so that the living entities may achieve their goal of life. And in order to restrict materialistic activities, I have established that which is proper and improper among all living things, all material things. And he describes about there are things which can be said as proper as well as improper. And he says there are places like can be said as contaminated places or lands, like the places who is bereft of brahmanas, is well as contaminated places or or where there is no cleanliness, and there is purificatory rituals or are neglected. That is, that place is contaminated by, or that place is called as contaminated places. And where the meat eaters are prominent, that is also contaminated places. And in the same, again, there's a place and then time. What the time is contaminated, Krishna says that that time which impedes the performance of one's duty is considered impious or impure. Basically, if one neglects the loving service of the Lord and being carried away by sense gratification, he is certainly living in the most inauspicious times. So, we discussed earlier in this Bhagavatam early, I think it's Canto 1 or 2, that's been described that, by rising of sun and setting of the sun, 1 day goes away, or time takes our 1 day, right? But one who is engaged in the devotional service, it doesn't impact to them, right? In the similar way, Krishna says that, if one neglect the loving service of the Lord, being carried away by the sense gratification, he is certainly living in the most inauspicious time. So that's how time can become inauspicious if we are bereft of uh, devotional service towards Lord and are carried away towards sense gratification. And the same way, Krishna says the object can be also be classified into proper and improper. The objects are by application of another objects, like, by words, by rituals, and by effects of time. How it says that the cloth the cloth is purified by cleaning with water. So one object is by the application of another object get cleaned, like the cloth is an object and water is another object. So cloth is purified by the clean water, and then the same cloth is, he is giving example how it happens. The cloth is again contaminated by the application of urine, right? So the same cloth, by the application of one object it get purified, and by application of another object or by in contact with another object it get contaminated. So cloth is purified by clean water and the cloth is contaminated by urine. And the words of saintly brahmanas are pure, but the sound vibration of a materialistic person is contaminated by lust and envy. So the sound we hear from the brahmanas or the great acharyas, that's are pure and it liberates us. The sound which we hear from these materialistic persons, those are contaminated by lust and envy. And Krishna explained that another example, saying that, for example, a flower to be offered to the deity must be purified with water, and flowers or food cannot be offered to the deity. However, if they have been contaminated by being smelled or tested before offering. So when we offer food or bhoga or flower to Lord, we don't eat first, we don't smell first, we just offer it first and then we smell it. So that's what Krishna says. So before offering, if we taste the food, it's become contaminated and it's not being offered to Krishna. And after offering it, we can taste it, right? So it's a way understanding that how things get contaminated by in touch with other objects. Then Krishna says the we ourself can be cleaned by veding, by giving charity and doing austerities. A mantra is purified when chanted with proper knowledge. So the mean is basically when we chant the mantra, if you know the meanings of the mantra, it makes more sense as well. And that's how it's begin purified with proper pronunciation and others. And one's work is purified when is offered to Krishna. So this self is purified or cleaned by bathing, by giving charity, by doing austerities, and a mantra is purified when it's chanted, and when our work is purified when we offer to Krishna. Thus, by the purification of place, time, substance, the doer, the mantra, or the work, one become religious. And by negligence of these 6 items, one is considered that irreligious. So people sometimes, who are not religious, they do not consider the time, the place, and the substance, the mantras, even they don't offer things, they don't do charity and austerity kind of things. That becomes irreligious. And Krishna says that considering of piety and sin is circumstantial. So what does this mean, that consideration of piety and sin are circumstantial? It's basically a same act can become piety, and also same act can become sin as well. How it is? Krishna explains that, the purport is written that if an army chops a hole in neighbor, giving up family. So what the example is basically, if let's suppose there's a fire, got fire in neighbor's house, and if someone goes and chops a hole in the neighbor house, and the people will get evacuated from that, so that comes as piety. This is a good work. However, without any fire happening in the neighbor, if someone goes and chops a hole in the neighbor's house, it becomes a sin, right? So that's how, one example. Another example is given as giving up family and sannyasi. So so giving up our family without proper knowledge is a sin, isn't it? Not taking care of family is a sin. And however, at the same time, with higher understanding, if someone gives us his family and takes sannyasa order, that's for a good cause of the society, that becomes a piety. And then Krishna continues saying that, uh, by reframing from a particular sinful or materialistic activity, one becomes freed from its bondage. So by knowing what is sin and what is material things, and refraining from those activities, one becomes free from its bondage as well. And then Krishna explains how the attachment happens. It's a very nice verse, comes in Bhagavad Gita as well. Krishna says, the first, a person, he accepts sense objects. From that sense object, attachment arose, and from attachment it comes lust, and from lust it comes quarrel. Because when we desire it not fulfilled, we start fighting with each other, fighting with our own self. And then when that intolerable anger comes up, and then when anger comes, darkness or ignorance comes up. So it's a nice verse, comes in Bhagavad Gita as Dhayate Vishwam Pumsam. So 2.62 from there. So when we contemplate on the objects, we get attachment, right? And when we get attachment, we have a desire to get it. So that's basically lust. And then if we don't fulfill our desire or the lust, we start in a position of quarrel, and then anger arises, and then we go into darkness or ignorance. And when the darkness of ignorance is prominent, then that person or the person is quickly overtakes man's intelligence. So the intelligence goes away by the darkness, right? And then when there is no intelligence, the person has considered to have lost everything, and then devoid of his actual purpose of his life, he becomes dull, just like a dead person. So that's how the contemplation of an object bring us towards ignorance, towards no purpose of life, and dull. And then due to sense gratification, one cannot recognize himself or even others. And then living uselessly in ignorance like a tree, one is merely breathing just like a willows. So it's the person is just taking his body and living, but there is no purpose of his life. That all comes from the uh, acceptance of sense objects and attachment toward that, right? And then uh, Lord says that these statements of scriptures promising fruitic rewards do not prescribe the ultimate good for man, but are merely for executing beneficial religious duties. So the point is here, it's being said that, does this scriptures or the Vedas, what provides us to do onto all these karma kanda activities, are they cheating us? So Krishna says the answer to this here, that the statement of scriptures promising fruit rewards, they do not prescribe the ultimate good, though they provide some good, but it's not the ultimate one. How? It's like the promises of a candy spoken to induce a child to take beneficial medicine. So like it's many times it happens the child don't want to take medicine, but the parents, they give them, okay, if you take this medicine, I'll give you something, I'll give you lollipop, or take this lollipop or candy, and then take the medicines. So this, whatever the reward we get from this from fruit activities or from these scriptures, this actually teaches us that okay, there is something higher on that. That they are like small medicine, so that we become attached, we remain at least some on the path of spirituality, some on the path of at least religiosity, so that when we understand that okay, whatever we are gaining, it's again going back, and we have a more and more desire, and then one day we'll understand that okay, the real thing is that it's all temporary, and we need to get something higher than that. And then Krishna says that those who are ignorant of their self-interest, they head towards hell. So having no purpose of life, or just having sense gratification for the life, we are heading towards the hellish planets or hell. And then Krishna explained that why would these Vedas, they encourage people in sense gratification. Krishna says that persons with perverted intelligence do not understand the actual purpose of the Vedic knowledge, and they think that they think and even propagate that material reward as the highest Vedic truth, but that's not correct. So the material reward is not the highest Vedic truth, and those in actual knowledge of the Vedas, they never speak in that way. So Krishna says that uh, those who are in actual real knowledge of Vedas, they never speak about this material rewards as highest Vedic truth. Person dedicated to sense gratification cannot understand that I am situated in everyone's heart. So Krishna says that person who is actually engaged in sense gratification doesn't understand that Krishna as a Paramatma living within their heart, right? And then they are just like persons whose eyes are covered by fog. So hence they cannot understand that confidential conclusion of Vedic knowledge, which is explained by Krishna. So that's how, because of ignorance, because of not having proper knowledge, because of engagement in sense gratification, the persons are devoid of the path, and they do not understand the real conclusion of Vedic knowledge, and they perform uh, material activities, or or they understand this highest Vedic truth of Vedas is material reward, or by how we can enjoy ourselves, how we can get more and more sense enjoyment by practicing this Vedas. And then people who are in passion, they commit violence, and they slaughter innocent animals in sacrifice for their own sense gratification, and thus they worship devatas, forefathers, and leaders among the ghostly creatures. So just to fulfill their own sense gratification, they due to passion, and they kill these innocent animals. And under the modes, they worship respective devatas, and they fail to worship me. So Krishna is saying that these are the ways, these are the things because of which people do not worship me. And Krishna says the same thing in Bhagavad Gita as well. Like Chaturveda Bhajante Mam, that four kind of people, they worship me, and that we discussed earlier, the four type of people, they do not worship me as well. And then again Krishna said the more thing as well, desiring for heaven. So people sometimes they worship the devatas in a way to desire more sense enjoyment or sense gratification even in heaven. And then when they go to heaven, and after that enjoying the piety, they come back here, and they get aristocratic family, and being excessively proud and greedy, such persons are bewildered by the flowery words of Vedas. So concluding, Krishna says that the Vedas, they do not cheat us, because we tend to think that the Vedas is ultimate truth, as sense enjoyment or rewards are the highest thing. That's why people are bewildered by the flowery words of Vedas. I think it's been described that nearly 95%, more than 95% in the Vedas, they describes or gives about the karma kanda process, and very less has been described as a bhakti or a supreme path for spirituality. Rest everything is says as a karma kanda. Do this, you will get this. Do this, you will get this. The thing that someone should be, by that at least we are attached to some religious activities. We have seen a couple of days back we read all the chapter 7 properly as well. Krishna says completely how and why it happens. And then Krishna says that I personally established this Vedic sound vibration in the form of Omkara. So Omkara is again Krishna's representation or impersonal representation of Krishna, this Omkara. And in the entire world, only I understand the confidential purpose of Vedic knowledge. So Krishna says, only I am one who completely understand the real purpose of Vedic knowledge, which is very, very deep, which is very, very elaborate, unlimited, and unfathomable as well. So that's how Krishna, in a summary, he explains about the why there are different paths and why people engage in the here and there. And then in chapter 22, Krishna goes more into there, and he says, enumeration of elements of material creation. Earlier, if he just before this chapter, 19, I think 19 or 20 chapter, where we seen that Krishna says about 28 elements, right? In this now, Uddhava, by hearing all this, asks a question to Lord Sri Krishna. He says, "Lord, oh my Lord, you said that there are 28 elements, but many different authority they count it as 26, 25, 7, 11, 4, 13, 16, and so on. So kindly explain this. I'm not able to understand this son." And the Lord said that all are correct, as all material elements are present everywhere. It is reasonable that different learned Brahmanas have analyzed them in different ways. So everything, all this, the Brahmanas or learned people who have, they have authority, they have said it, they all are correct. It's all correct, but they have analyzed these elements in a different way, and they all spoke under the shelter of my mystic potency. That's how everything is correct in the way they have analyzed it. So I accept all the conclusion given by these authorities, and because a logical explanation can always be given for each of the different theories. So Krishna explains about all the other theories as well here, and this says the 9 basic elements are the soul, the nature primeval manifestation of Mahatattva, the false ego, the ether, air, fire, water, earth, and the 5 knowledge acquiring senses like in hearing, touch, sight, smell, taste, the 5 working senses like speech, the hands, the genitals, anus, and the legs, and the 5 objects of knowledge acquiring senses are sound, touch, taste, smell, and form. Thus, this great philosopher, they have analyzed the metal element in many different ways. And then Krishna explained those. And then Uddhava asks another question. He says, although nature and the living entity are distinct, they appear to be no difference between them. How it is? So, but they reside in one another. And basically, he wanted to ask the question that what is the difference between Purusa and Prakriti? So, as a living entity, or the supreme living entity and this Prakriti, so it looks to be one and one, but how they are, but still they are two different things. So please clear my this doubt. And also he said that from you alone, the knowledge of all living being arises, and by your potency, that knowledge is stolen away as well. So Krishna, Uddhava is saying that the all knowledges what we get is actually arise from you. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita as well, like in verse Tesham Sadata Yuktanam Bhajadam Priti Purvakam Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. So Krishna says, I give the knowledge to my devotees how they can come back to my abode. So even the knowledge. There is one more verse as well. There is knowledge as well as this, forgetfulness. The both comes from Krishna only. And so he says that no one except you can understand the real nature of your illusory potency. So please describe me the difference between these two. And then Lord explains this, that there are three factors. One is called as adhyatma, that is represented by the senses such as eyes and other senses, and adibhuta is the sense object such as form, and adideva is the influence of controlling deities. These exist in an interdependent relationship. And Lord says, without understanding Lord Krishna, mere argument and debate over reality and non-reality of material world are useless. So uh, we may say this world is real, some say, and some says this world is not real. But unless and until we try to understand Krishna and relate these things with Krishna, that all becomes useless. So this material world is a real specifically because it emanates from the supreme reality, that is Lord Sri Krishna. So without keeping the basis of Krishna, or we try to understand this even whole nature, there will be of no use. And Krishna says very well here as well. This whole material world is real because it emanates from the supreme reality, Lord Sri Krishna. You remember, when His Holiness Dayananda Maharaj was here, he started with the first verse that that everything emanates from Krishna and everything is completely perfect because Krishna is completely perfect. Right? And then Shuddhava, he asked another question. He said, please explain me how people attain this body. So how we get these different kind of bodies? Please explain. So it's been very, very difficult for a foolish person to understand it. And being cheated by the illusion in this world, people generally do not become aware of these facts. So please explain this so that we can understand well. And Lord Krishna says that the mind, shaped by the reactions of fruit work, it travels from one body to another. So mind, with the reaction of fruit of work. So whatever we do, and that we do in the interaction with the three modes, whatever it comes, that makes us travel from one body to another body. However, Krishna says the spirit soul is different from the mind and others, and however it follows the mind. So spirit soul follows the mind, but still it's different from mind. And in the new body, which is created by own karma, he becomes absorbed in the pleasure and pains. So depending upon our karma, this new body experiences pleasure and miseries. And however, due to death, it forgets its past bodies. So, and birth is just like a person's identification with the new body. So whenever the death happens, this body forgets everything related to it. So sometimes by the mercy of Lord, we remember something, though it's coming to us through karma, but somehow or other we don't remember particularly about our previous life completely. So I think sometime back in one of the lecture, His Holiness Rasamrit Maharaj, he was saying that, just imagine if we remember our previous birth, and let's suppose someone say, okay, I was a snake in my previous birth, and how it will be terrible to be living in this world, isn't it? If we remember our previous birth, that's the way, one way Krishna doesn't make us remember our previous birth. And but reality is that it's all coming from there only. So we know there's a previous birth, we know there's a karma, and because of that we get this nature in this life, and we are continuing it. And Krishna says that how it happens, like in the death we forget everything, and in the new life comes with a new identification for the body. And it happens as if like someone is experiencing a dream as a reality. So in dream we see so many things. When we discussed earlier examples, in the dream a person may see that himself has had been chopped off, But whenever he gets up, he says, no, it's all okay, nothing is there. That's a dream, right? And this material body are constantly undergoing creation and destruction by the force of time. So this material body, if you see, uh, is actually uh, dest- it's it's getting destroyed at every second of time, isn't it? That's why science says that in 7 years our whole body get renewed, isn't it? So Krishna say, explain this in an example as well. But because of this subtle nature of time, no one sees it. We do not see it, isn't it? But it's actually happening. If you see the child in year times, he grows and he changes everything. That's basically one way of destruction and one way of creation as well. And Krishna explains this in a other way, like light. So when the rays of light, when we see a lamp is glowing, the ray of light, that the ray of light undergoes constantly creation and transformation and destruction. So if you put a lamp, ghee lamp, you see after some time that ghee lamp get burned completely. But at this time when it's burning, we don't see that transformation happening in that. But after some time we see it's all gone now. But actually at every moment of time it's getting transformed. A new race is being created, and the previous race become destructed. In the similar way it goes. And let's suppose if you put a candle, you can see the candle goes down and the finishes. That's how creation, transformation and destruction happens every single point of time. Another example Krishna gives here, as if like uh, uh, river. So a river, if you see a river, flowing river, the water in front of us looks to be always new, isn't it? The previous it has gone, what I've seen, and now it's all new because it's just flowing. So constantly the water is flowing, and every time we see, we get a new water, and it passes away and goes away. In a similar way, this body goes by every single time. It is goes into three ways. It creates and transforms and destroy. And in a similar way, the material body of human being is constantly undergoing transformation. And there are 9 stages being described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Though in Bhagavad Gita it's being said as 6 stages, and here Krishna goes with more detail on that. The first stage says impregnation, and the second is gestation, third is birth, infancy, childhood, youth, middle age, old age, and death. These are the 9 stages of transformation of the body. And by death of superiors, we understand death. We understand that yes, death is awaiting. How? By when we see uh, the death of others. By birth of one's child, son or daughter, one understands the birth. So this is the way we understand that okay, someone has come into in this world, and someone has passes away from this world. And an unintelligent person or man, he fails to distinguish himself from this material nature. So without having this knowledge, one would not be able to distinguish himself from the material nature and himself as everything, or he designates himself with the body only. And after saying these things, Krishna explains about the destination where one goes. Uh, so when someone he lives his life in the mode of goodness, in the next life he take birth among the sages or demigods or devatas. And when basically in the 14th planetary system, if we live in a mode of goodness, we go higher towards heavenly planet, toward higher things. And when the person live in the life as a mode of passion, either he can go to the demon or in human being, in the middle planet, you can say as a Burloka. And person living in the mode of ignorance, he might go into ghostly kingdom or animal kingdom. So these are the way how we live. And so Krishna says and warns that do not try to enjoy sense gratification. And even with many difficulties, one who desires the highest goal in life should use his intelligence to keep himself safe on the spiritual platform. So Krishna is saying that a real intelligence is that to keep himself safe on the spiritual platform. Basically, the mode of goodness takes us toward the higher planet, and mode of passion keeps us in this middle one, and mode of ignorance is makes us go down. But in the mode of pure goodness, that is the higher than the goodness or Shuddha Sattva, in that state, or that's also called a Vasudeva state, there we go to the spiritual world where there is no more birth, death, old age, and disease. And hence, Krishna concludes this saying that uh, after concluding this, Uddhava asks another question. He said, whatever you have spoken to me, uh, please explain to me how I may properly understand this. So basically, he wants to understand this process and this how he can uh, understand this difference between his body and the soul, and how he can try to transcend these modes of goodness as well. He asks another question. So please let me properly understand this. And then Krishna explains this in another 2 3 chapters. So chapter 23 will start tomorrow, where we'll see a very nice Krishna gives an example of an Brahmana, Avanti Brahmana, how that Brahmana we'll see is tomorrow. That Brahmana was actually quite rich, but still he was very miserly. He was very greedy and very lusty and very angry. And then uh, due course of time, everything goes away. He becomes detached, and then he understands the real nature of his. So we'll discuss it tomorrow. Anyone have any question or any thoughts? Okay. If no, then we can stop today here, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki,
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki,
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki,
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.